Welcome to Think Smart with TMFG, the weekly podcast covering the financial topics that are newsworthy and relevant to everyday Canadians. Hosted by Senior Financial Advisor Mike Connon of the McClellan Financial Group of CI Asante Wealth Management Limited, here is today's episode.
Welcome to Think Smart with TMFG. I'm Mike Connon. Beside me is Tyler Robertson, Financial Advisor with CI Asante Wealth Management Limited. So, Tyler, tell us a bit about your role in here for the people who are not familiar with you yet.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I'm Tyler Robertson. Been working here at TMFG since 2020, almost 6 years now. More than half of it been in the advisory role, which has been great. Ever since I've started, really enjoyed being in client meetings, helping people and talking to people, learning from Mike, and happy to be on the podcast.
Happy to have you here in the podcast, Tyler. So today we're going to dig deeper into one of retirement's biggest questions that we hear from clients and listeners. Is retiring early always better than retiring later? Prepping this episode, we found interesting data like the average retirement age in Canada, according to Manulife's 2025 study, is 59, enjoying retirement. What do you think of the results? You got a chance to look through this. Any surprises in there?
People are often surprised to know that early retirement doesn't always equal a better retirement. I think there's a bit of a misconception with how difficult of a transition it is to go from working life to retired life. I think that you can have a happy retirement, retiring early or late, but more so depends on the plan you put in place beforehand.
It's funny, it's before your time. When I started this industry, London Life came up with this idea called Freedom 55. And it was on every TV, and all you heard about is Freedom 55. So everyone assumed that you could retire at 55. And this was the dream. Yeah. And there were certain careers that you could do. Teachers were able, because they started early and they got a full career, and by the age 55, they could generally work a 55 retirement. A lot of police officers and firemen, because they started very early, they had a strong pension. And by the time you were 55, you're trying to hit a factor, and they were pretty close to hitting that factor, and they could actually retire. And it was sort of a dream for everyone who came in. They want to retire at 55. But this survey has looked at people retiring in those early ages, and what does it say?
Yeah, it's more so the plans that are put in place that build the success. And to your point, those people with pensions, knowing their retirement date makes it a lot easier to plan for and know when that end date of work is going to be. I think that people really struggle when they're retiring early, when they're forced into retirement, whether it's health reasons or getting laid off. That leads to more issues in retirement, not being well prepared for it.
It's just not a financial issue. It's more of knowing what you want to do. People always come in because we're the financial advisors. They always come with the famous question, can I retire?
Right.
And the question, can you retire, is very different than the question, should I retire? There's two different questions out there. And if we're trying to maximize enjoyment rather than maximize funds and how you're going to manage your income, it becomes a very different question. In this survey, they surveyed 2,000 Canadians, and they looked at the retirees. The average retirement age in the survey is 59 years old, right? But early retirees left on average at 56 years old, and 62 years was for the people who stuck with the plan.
Right.
Who was happier?
Well, it's crazy because it's such a small window. I mean, the earliest being 56 versus 62 to those who stuck to the plan, only being a 6-year window. To have that much of a gap in satisfaction of retirement really speaks to the amount of planning that needed to go in beforehand.
The numbers point to 81% of all retirees say they enjoy retirement, but that drops to 75% among those early retirees. And when people retired either on time or later, their satisfaction is up to 87%. So it seems that early retirement, getting to go early, doesn't seem to create this great joy that you think it would.
Right. Like to my point earlier, it is what you make it, in the sense that if you want to retire early and you've planned for it, well, that's great. It's typically more enjoyable than if you're being let go and you're not being prepared.
Yeah. Just because you retire early doesn't mean you're not going to be happy. But when you find why people are retiring early, it really began to show a lot. A lot of those people that retired before their 62 retirement, some of them were let go.
Right. And
people were never satisfied when they let go. And unfortunately, some other ones were medical reasons. You get some bad news or something isn't going right. You decide, I don't want to sit around and work to 62. I want to enjoy what I have in there. And again, that doesn't make for the greatest plan either.
Yeah, this is exactly where the why behind the stat gets uncomfortable, because early retirement isn't always chosen. It's more so forced. Mike, when you read the health issues and the layoffs being the top drivers of early retirement, not necessarily lifestyle choice, does that change how you counsel a client who they say want to retire early?
Yeah, you got to make sure you always want to retire in your own choices on what
Mhm.
you want to do. As they said, the highest matter of satisfaction is people who are sticking with their plan, not someone else's plan. And that's what really is the big difference between the two. Also, things have changed quite a bit because previously people used to have, as we talked about, the teachers and the firemen and that, they used to have a set retirement plan and they stuck with, even outside those professions. When you had a job, a lot of jobs had set retirement ages and had pension plans that were meant to match up with that retirement age.
Yep.
Do they exist as much anymore?
It's not as often. I mean, it used to be more popular than it is. We've heard about the defined benefit plans not existing as much anymore. Employees having to save for their own retirement more so. And even when we were looking at the numbers, seeing that only 15% of people retired because they had saved enough is a pretty staggering number. I mean, we work with people and plan for retirement, and seeing that only 15% of people actually did so because they had enough money, it's quite concerning for the number of years that you're going to be retired for, especially with that number getting earlier and earlier.
Yeah, it's very different now too, because you've been with us. How much did you say you've been with us?
6 years.
5, 6 years. A lot of your friends, they probably have been in one job for 6 years.
Right.
The new thing is moving from job to job,
Right.
and that doesn't make for strong retirement plans. Until you're settled into a company, very difficult to think about retirement. It's a new way that the world is moving. As people move between jobs, retirement your company is no longer looking at your retirement,
Yep.
right? So nowadays, if you have a company who's hiring someone, it used to be you hired someone and they were going to work for you and they were going to go and work to retirement and you're going to bring them to retirement.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the world has changed, right? It's going to be people going in and out. People are on loan for a period of time. So the companies have no longer really concerned themselves with their employees' retirement. I think it's a terrible thing, but
Yep.
it's the reality of what's happening nowadays.
No, like you said, I mean, there's less people that are starting and finishing at the same job. It's not quite as common as it used to be with the people with those defined benefit plans, the firefighters, the employees like that. So it's really not quite as common as it used to be.
Back when I was working with Rob, your grandfather was a client here,
Yeah.
right? And I remember always had his company. He was working and he would work all the time and he loved his work.
Yep.
He just came in retirement, but unfortunately he passed away. And it's very sad because we loved him as a client. And I remember talking to Rob and saying, this is just, sometimes life sucks. You work all your life and you finally get to retirement and then you don't make it to that. I remember talking to you and you gave me a different view of his work life.
Yeah, he was one of those situations, exactly what we talked about, that, was forced out of work, not by choice, but because of health concerns. And looking back on it, it's funny. Your perspective is that, it's not an ideal way to spend the last few years of your life, especially when he was healthy. But it's a very different situation when he loves what he was doing, and he would have gone quite crazy if he wasn't working, to be honest with you. So it's one of those situations that he didn't go out on his own choosing in terms of retirement, but he really did enjoy what he was doing. And I think it also speaks to what you've mentioned in the past, that a lot of self-employed individuals or business owners end up working longer than those that work at a company because they essentially have to submit their own letter of resignation. I mean, it's just very, very difficult to do compared to, submitting a letter of resignation to your boss.
Yeah, if you love what you do, you don't retire from things you love, right? You retire from things you don't like. If you get enjoyment and energy out of what you're doing, sometimes, we talk about retirement, but for some people, there's no need to it. So it's not a one scenario fits every scenario where you say, okay, you're 65 years old, you have to retire now. It's time. It doesn't. It's a very individual decision. And there's some people who come in here who surprise you. Their goal is to be retired 55. They want to make sure no matter
Yep.
what, I want to be done when I'm 55. So it's a very personal decision.
Absolutely. And I mean, being a business owner gives you that flexibility to scale back the amount you work instead of just stopping all at once. And I think that makes for a much easier transition as well. We've seen a lot of that in terms of stepping down from your current role, moving into more of a consulting role. And I think that's kind of what he did. And it works for a lot of people that, allows you to spend more time with the people you care about, doing the things you want to do while also not hitting that retirement transition at one time and struggling with.
Also, when we think of retirement, there's a few different pieces of retirement. The obvious one that everyone talks about is income, right?
Yep.
Things that change when you retire. So obviously, when you retire, there's going to be a change of income. You're going to have to replace what someone is paying you for or
Yep.
was coming out of your company and find a way to replace that income with either RIF income, your pensions,
Mhm.
taking money out of a draw from your open account, whatever it is you want to come up with a replacement in there. But there's other things too. When you talk with early retirements, medical is one thing. Sometimes you cover all medical benefits. So a big conversation we had when they retire before 65 is what are we going to do to cover those benefits in between?
Yeah, there's many different things other than just the financial aspect. We've also dealt with a lot of people that struggle with lack of purpose or sense of what to do with their time. I mean, it's very difficult to go from working 40-hour week and having the same routine every day to all of a sudden not having to set an alarm and have any plans for the day.
There was an advisor we worked with for years. His name was Riley Moyens, and he wrote a book about the stages of retirement. It was a very good book. And it talked about this high suicide rate amongst retirees, which would surprise you. Why would someone who's made it through all their teens and that actually kill themselves when they're retired? But it was a lack of sense of purpose. The other situation was the divorce rate amongst retirees went through the roof because people weren't used to spending time together. And all of a sudden, you had a combination of a husband and a wife, and one was working, and they're used to telling everyone what to do, and they think they could stop working and tell their spouse what to do. That didn't go over very well.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very big problem that are in this social aspect of retirement. So you have income, you have medical, you have social, even things like insurance and stuff that used to be covered by your company, you're now getting older, more difficult to insure, and that's no longer provided through any group plans or anything like that. So there's a whole lot of different aspects of retirement beyond just creating an income plan.
Right. Yeah, that insurance would just now be an additional expense that this person wasn't dealing with beforehand that's going to impact their monthly cash flow. And it's something a lot of people don't think of because they're used to having it covered and it's just not on their mind.
There was this other stat that I read in here. It said Canada's health-adjusted life expectancy is now about 66.9 years old against an overall life expectancy in the low 80s, meaning close to 15 years of a healthy life can be lost by working right up to the later retirement year.
That's quite a crazy stat, knowing that 66.9 years, being almost 67 years old, is the average healthy life expectancy. That's essentially how long the average person lives a healthy lifestyle. Not necessarily how long they live, but how long they live being healthy. Pretty crazy to think how close that is to the age 65, which is what a lot of people would think of as a retirement date. That's only 2 years sooner than the
2 years of healthy lifestyle. I
Right.
mean, you may live for another 10, 15 years after that, but
Right.
you may not be able to do the things you planned on doing when you were thinking about retirement. Everyone has this dream retirement in their mind where they're running through beaches and jogging on the beach and going climbing mountains and doing all this stuff. I can tell you, as I get older, it's not as easy as you think. So
That's right.
that dream that I had when I was 30 years old of what I'd be doing in retirement has really changed. And that goes along with that health-adjusted lifestyle. So sometimes if you want to get that stuff done, it is important to make sure again, what we found from all these surveys is they might have said that you're more unhappy when you retire early, but when we break it down, it's more about unexpected.
Right.
So it's rather than talking about the age in which you're going to retire, it's either if you make the retirement decision, you seem to be a lot happier than if someone makes that or health makes that retirement decision for you. When we look at the data and the reasons behind the numbers, you realize neither group wins. The Manulife data showed satisfaction tracks of planning, not age, right? So it's all about whether it's planned or unplanned. It shows the happiness. Early retirees are happier when they leave by choice. Late retirees are happier when they stay because work still gives them a purpose. You definitely need a purpose in life. So don't retire without a plan. It's all about planning.
Whether you're retiring early, retiring late, I think the more important part is how you go out, not necessarily what age you step away from work.
So the age isn't the real point.
Right.
It's that you do it under your own terms, right? So to have a plan in place, to know what you want, to be aware of things like that healthy life age, and be very aware with that when you're doing your planning. So make sure you know when you want to retire, and make sure you've thought about what you're going to do when you retire.
Right.
Have a purpose in life.
Not just financially when you step away from work, but what you're going to do day to day. Make sure you keep busy, have a purpose, exactly like you said.
And that can lead to a great retirement. So to close this episode, Tyler, I'm curious, when a client tells you their goals is to retire as early as possible, what's the first question you're going to ask them now?
Do you have a good plan in place? I mean, that's the most important part, really. It's a matter of what are you going to do when you do retire, what the plan is, and how are you going to get from here to there in the next few years or however many it is. And I think that's kind of the conclusion we've come to, is that it's really important to have a good plan in place, be ready for what the next step really looks like. So if you're wondering who's actually happier, early or late retirees, the honest answer is neither one wins by default. The happiest retirees on either side are the ones who design the transition instead of drifting into or getting pushed into it. If you're within 5 years of retiring, whether you're leaning early, leaning late, still not sure, or already retired but not fully satisfied with how your portfolio is looking, we can help. So feel free to reach out to us. You can visit us at tmfg.ca or call us directly at 905-771-5200. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in a future episode, leave a comment.
Thank you very much. That brings to the end of another episode of Think Smart with TMFG. And have a great day.
You've been listening to Think Smart with TMFG with Mike Connon of the McClellan Financial Group of CI Asante Wealth Management. Don't forget to subscribe to Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube Music, and leave us a review. For more insights and resources, visit tmfg.ca or follow the link in the episode description. This program was prepared by Michael Connon, Senior Financial Advisor with CI Asante Wealth Management Limited. This is not an official program of CI Asante Wealth Management Limited, and the statements and opinions expressed during this podcast are not necessarily those of CI Asante Wealth Management Limited. CI Asante Wealth Management Limited is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. This show is intended for general information only and may not apply to all listeners or investors. Please obtain professional financial advice by contacting us at 905-771-5200 or visit tmfg.ca to discuss your personal circumstances before acting on any information presented.